Hello friends, welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. I know my weekly what I feed my family in a week videos usually are all dinners, but this week I am starting with breakfast. This is what I like to call a breakfast pizza. I don't usually make this too often, but when I do, it usually is a pretty big hit. I already had this pre-made pizza dough on hand, so that's what I'm using this morning. However, usually I use a homemade pizza dough. I've also used croissant dough or biscuit dough. I don't love the texture of those usually, so I usually like the pizza dough, but use whatever you have on hand. So you'll just spread the dough across the bottom of the pan, and I like to bring it up the sides a little bit to create a little bit of a crust. And then you will bake it just so it isn't too soggy. I usually do it until it starts to brown. I pre-made a gravy with just milk, flour, salt, pepper, and it's a sausage gravy, so there is turkey sausage in it. I'm spreading that along the bottom of the crust after it baked, and that's going to create like a sauce, almost like a pizza sauce. Then I'm going to top with scrambled eggs and some cheese, and then I'll put it back in the oven to finish baking. There was a Facebook post earlier this week that was discussing meal options and asking for quick suggestions for every meal of the day. So this was one of the things that I suggested because it comes together really quick and it's always a favorite amongst my kids. This also heats up very well, and my husband, who works on job sites often, he will heat one of these up in the morning and bring it with him. Not the whole pizza. He'll heat up a slice in the morning to bring with him to work. So if you have a husband that needs a quick breakfast as well, this is always a good thing to make ahead and then heat up when it comes to it. But ultimately, that Facebook post earlier this week is what I wanted to address in today's video. Too often, we're in this stage of life that we are just pulled in so many different directions. One of the things that I do to cope with that and not feel the burden of always having to come up with meal ideas is I usually make a weekly or a monthly meal plan. Now, lately, it's just been weekly because I cannot stress my brain enough to figure out a monthly meal plan. However, I know that is not the case in many households. Whether you have the time or ability to make a meal plan from week to week or not, I just wanted to post a video of what meals often look like in my household when I do not have a meal plan to follow for the week. I like to keep my meals on a low budget, so that's often what you're going to find in my videos. But these meals are also low maintenance. In this stage of life that we are in, we are busy, we are tired, we're pulled in a million directions. So let's take the dreadful task of planning meals out of this week. When I have a busy week, I have a lot going on, I will eliminate the meal planning and I'll buy groceries in categories instead. I will make sure I have enough of main dishes like meats for each day, and I'll make sure that I have a starch and a vegetable for most of the days too. Then I'll also go through our snacks or extra things and get those items for the week too. But that way, when it comes time to picking your dinner that day, you can just grab something from each category and not have to think about it. A lot of times I'll end up saving money this way too, because it forces me to go through what I have on hand before I'm actually buying new stuff. So today I am making hamburger soup and I'm pairing it with some grilled cheese. This is something that you will see I make quite a bit on my channel because I usually always have the ingredients on hand and everyone in my family really enjoys this meal. This meal is so versatile. You can use any veggies that you have on hand. There are so many that go really well with this dish, but I usually just start off by browning hamburger in a pot with some diced onions. Usually if the onion is small, I'll just dice the whole thing. This is my daughter. She thinks it's funny to sometimes be on camera and do things like this because she thinks that I'm going to cut it out of the video. However, I am not. So she was actually putting just some beef bouillon cubes in because I didn't have enough beef broth. I like to add between 6 and 8 cups of either stock of some kind. You can pretty much if you have it made or if you have it bought, you can do whatever you want. You can do chicken, beef, vegetable, bone, any kind of broth that you would like. It is very versatile. So I only had 2 cups of beef broth. So then we added 2 cubes of the beef bouillon cubes. And then I added 4 more cups of water, I believe it was. Really, again, you can start with 6, and if you want to add more, you can always do that. This is another great meal that where after it's been cooking a while, if you decide that it needs something, you can usually throw it in. So I usually like to add potatoes. I don't add noodles. My daughter usually suggests, oh, noodles would be great, but we stick with vegetables. So I am adding potatoes, carrots, celery, onion. Like I said, you can kind of do whatever you have on hand. That is the beauty of this dish. And because I had everything on hand for this meal ended up being $0 out of my pocket, which is great when groceries are insane right now. If you're buying groceries, you absolutely know what I'm talking about. But saving where you can is key right now. And so when I can do a meal that my whole family really enjoys and that often makes quite a bit of leftovers, that costs no money, I'm going to do that. So that is what I did here. It was $0 for this meal because I had everything on hand and I only used the vegetables and stuff that I had on hand, which is really great too when you're trying to clear out your fridge and stuff like that before anything goes bad. You can really have zero waste with this kind of stuff, adding in anything frozen or canned or anything that is about to go bad before getting groceries. This is always a really great meal to do just to kind of clear out your fridge and use up things so they don't end up going bad. So you can't really see because it's focused on me cutting, but in the background of this video, my husband and daughter are helping me out. They are cleaning the carrots for me to dice up. However, they turn everything into a competition, the two of them. They are the most competitive people I have ever met in my life, and they egg each other on basically the entire time. So they were making this whole carrot cleaning thing, a whole competition in the pantry. So I did end up doing more carrots, but because they were taking so long with their competition they were having, you only saw me cutting up a couple of carrots because they were taking forever in the pantry. And I was just like, okay, you know what? Let me know when you're done so I can finish. I had some bread that we were needing to use. It got a little overcooked, so it is pretty hard for me to cut up. And also, it was still very, very hot. I warmed it up, so I was trying to get a move on. It was a little late in the evening, a little later than we usually eat. And so I was trying to hurry and cut it. And that's why you saw me using a towel because it was very, very hot. But I'm just making some small little quick grilled cheese sandwiches to go with our soup. And my kids, they're just like me when I was a kid. I always loved dipping the sandwich into the soup. It was my favorite part, and it's such an underrated meal, I swear. It's one of the best meals, especially on a cold winter night. One meal that I always fall back on when I don't have any meals planned for the week is tacos because you can do them so many different kinds of ways, and usually you can use stuff on hand to get you through. So I will mix it up, and my kids, they love tacos in pretty much any form. So I can usually get away with it, and if not once a week, I can definitely do it twice a week, especially if I do it different. So a lot of times you can do like a taco salad, you could do taco bowls, you can do enchiladas, quesadillas, the hard shell tacos, burritos. There are so many different ways to do tacos. And so I had a bunch of chicken meat left over that I am deboning. I roasted a couple of chickens this week that I needed to kind of get through. So I am deboning them, and I'm going to use that meat to make what I call crunchy oven tacos. This is another versatile meal. You can use chicken, you can use beef, you can use whatever you have on hand, or you can even just make them veggie tacos. Use what you have on hand first, and then just supplement with stuff that you get at the store, but you'll end up saving on your grocery bill. And if you have a dog and he is the goodest boy, he always waits for his chicken scraps right there when you're deboning chicken. Ted is always right there anytime I am ever deboning chicken. I am taking the bones and leftover meat on the bones, and I'm adding it to a stock pot, filling it with water, and then I will slowly boil it and make a broth out of it. I like to do this and then store the broth for other recipes that I have coming up. When I make tacos, I often like to serve with rice and beans. However, we are getting close to the end of our groceries for the week, and I don't have any beans, and we just had rice for lunch. So I am going to make a large salad. And my 5-year-old, he said it was the best salad he's ever had, and he actually ate 2 helpings of it and didn't even eat all of his taco. So he was very, very impressed with this salad, which is funny because I make this like all summer long. So it was a little funny that he was just like, this was the best thing he's had in a really long time. But it is a very, very simple salad. You'll just chop up. I did a whole head of lettuce because I wanted that to kind of be the main thing served with a taco on the side. So I did a whole head of lettuce, and I cut up almost all of this cucumber here in thin slices, and I topped it with the crunchy onions. I don't even know what those are called now that I'm thinking of. We always just call them crunchy onions. You know, the things that you put on top of green bean casseroles. Those make great salad toppings instead of like croutons or something, which I do like making when I need to use like leftover bread. But today I am going to just use those crunchy onions. So I have just a small amount in a jar. You'll see me pour those in. And then, like I said, we're getting kind of low on groceries, so I didn't have any tomatoes or anything like that. However, what makes a really great salad is I love putting in fresh pico de gallo. Again, don't have that. So I do have some salsa. I'm going to put the salsa on and some homemade ranch and mix that together. And it was really, really good. Like I said, my 5-year-old, who he is not a picky eater, but he definitely loves snacks more than any meal. I don't know. He's a typical 5-year-old. So he absolutely loved this salad out of everything I made tonight. And if you know me, you know I cannot follow any instructions ever. So you are supposed to use corn tortillas, and I believe they taste so much better than these white flour tortillas, but this is what I had on hand. And also, my daughter does not really love the taste of corn tortillas. So we don't usually have those on hand unless I'm specifically planning, and this meal was not planned. So we're using what we have on hand. But you will brush, or if you have a spray oil, you can do that. I think the recipe originally called for avocado oil to be sprayed on. I never buy the sprays, so I don't have that, but I am brushing oil on both sides, and I'm just doing an olive oil of the tortillas. And again, I don't follow directions. You're supposed to, once you get it brushed on, put the cheese and meat on one side. I forgot that that was what I was supposed to do. It's been a while since I've made these, and I added them after they had toasted in the oven a little bit, which was fine. It was just a little hotter to work with. So I do suggest putting the meat and cheese on first, but if you don't and you forget like me, it still worked out. So I put these in the oven and they're just slightly toasted. You can tell they're like the tiniest bit crunchy, but you can still fold them over. So I am putting cheese on one half and then I will top with chicken and I'll fold them over. And then I'm doing them to all of them and then I'll pop them back in the oven to cook for, I mean, they don't cook very long. I want to say like maybe 10 minutes altogether, 15 maybe, but they cook pretty quickly. I've served these with guacamole or salsa or like a spicy ranch. You can top these with whatever, just sour cream if you want. I did not end up serving them with anything. However, my family ended up getting some extra salsa and dipping these tacos in the salsa. You can also season the chicken with like taco seasoning or anything you really want. I didn't. I just took it and put it on there and it was just fine. But if you have the extra time and you want to add any seasonings, you can do that to whatever meat you end up putting on it. I use medium-sized flour tortillas, but if you're using the corn tortillas, they're smaller, so you will probably have to make more tacos. I'm also feeding a family of 6, but these tacos were pretty massive. My younger 2 boys, they ended up splitting a taco and one of them finished it, and then Theo, my 5-year-old, like I said, he had several helpings of salad and did not even finish his taco. So they are pretty big tacos when you're done, especially if you're making them like me with the medium-sized flour ones. But the other ones, the corn ones that you usually cook this with, are smaller. This is after they are done. They have a very cool texture, so I like doing them like this. They have where it's, softer in spots, but also crunchier in others. So they are different from a normal crunchy taco that you get. And they're a little better than frying them, which I've done before, but that is always so greasy. And even though they taste really good, they're not at all that great for you. I am just stirring up the salsa and ranch for the salad, and then I'm going to plate everybody's plate. Another great meal to clean out your fridge right before you get groceries, and one that you don't have to plan. It can be pretty sporadic. Like I said, I needed to get rid of some chicken that I had roasted earlier in the week. So we were trying to go through that and pretty much eat it in most meals until it was gone. But these tacos they're always a hit and they're super easy to make and they're pretty quick. In this stage of life that I am in, we homeschool our kids and everything is hectic. It seems like a lot of the time. So these are the perfect weeknight meals that you don't have to plan ahead of time. If you have been a friend of mine for a while, you know that my 5-year-old insists that I make these. They are just chocolate braids, and he absolutely loves them. They're his favorite snack nowadays and his favorite dessert. This is often what he picks for dessert. I make these probably once a week, and the recipe makes 2 of them, so they usually last for my whole family. My 15-year-old son really loves these, and so does my 5-year-old son. The other kids, they do like them too, and my husband, he brings some of these to work sometimes, but usually between my 15-year-old and my 5-year-old, they devour these. So I try making them, like I said, once a week. That way they have stuff to have for dessert, and I don't have to buy a bunch of the processed stuff in the store. I share this all the time on my channel, so I'm not going to post the recipe, but it is just the recipe for my sourdough cinnamon roll for the dough, and then I put a cocoa mixture on top. It's just cocoa, sugar, and butter, and then I put a couple of chocolate chips on it. You can leave those out if you'd like. My kids obviously love chocolate chips, so I do keep them on. You'll roll it up really tightly and then cut it and braid it and let it rise again before you bake it. It is very simple, and it is something that you can just prep and forget about for a while, a couple of hours, and then before you have to come back to it, which is really my kind of thing lately. I will post the link where you can find this recipe down below in the description box, but all of today's recipes are really just follow the video. They really don't have much to them because they're not heavily planned. They're supposed to be easy with very few ingredients. So I am not sharing recipes today just because they're very easy to see and make your own with what you have. When I make these every time, I usually just put this finished braid on a pan that's lined with parchment paper. And I did do that for one. However, this time I took another one and I put it in a bread pan. And I like how it held together as much as it did and how it turned out. So I will probably be doing that from now on. You can make a glaze for these. However, my kids and my family, they like it just with the powdered sugar. So I add a good amount of powdered sugar and then I'll take it out and slice it, and it slices just like bread. So that was why I really liked it like this instead of the other one, which kind of comes apart a little easier. But this one, it stayed in slices. I love how pretty it looked inside with how it was braided. Okay, so a little bit of a story time for this next one. I am making a pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. But for almost my entire life, I did not like pot roast. I don't know if it is I just never liked how it was made, or if I'm getting older and my taste buds are changing, which probably is the case, but I'm not sure. However, I grew up my entire childhood and teens, well into adulthood, and I did not like pot roast. When I became an adult and moved out, I would never ever buy pot roast. And I think I probably tried to make my own less than 5 times my entire life. So I really hated it. I hated the texture and I just did not like it. So I don't know what got into me, but randomly the other day I was like, pot roast sounds so good. So I got a big chuck pot roast and it was the best I have ever had in my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm at the point where like I already want to get another. I'm like sitting here in my head. This is how crazy it is. So I went from not liking it to basically obsessing about pot roast. And I am like, can I have a party this weekend where it's like a pot roast party? I'm like, I can invite all my friends over and family and we can have pot roast because I want a ton of pot roast. So it's a little wild, but I went from one extreme to the other and it was the simplest thing. I just seared the chuck roast on both sides in that pan. And then once it was done, I put in 2 cups of beef broth and then I slow and low roasted it in the oven covered for a couple of hours until it was tender and you can pull it apart. And oh my gosh, it was the most incredible thing and it was the easiest thing. And I'm sitting here like, why did I not like it before? Excuse me. Or what's going on here? Am I just like that much of an adult now where I love pot roast or what? But if you don't like pot roast, I highly suggest trying it how I just said because it was the best I've ever had. And now I want to have a pot roast party. My 7-year-old Lincoln, he is also in agreement that this was incredible. I don't know how much experience he has, 'cause like I said, I never have really made pot roast before, just a handful of times, and I don't remember them ever being good before this one. So he was like, "This is so good." He was excited to eat the leftovers the next day. Like he had planned out his lunch and everything. He's like, "I'm gonna be eating that pot roast." He was so excited. And then when he found out that my husband took it to work, he was legit bummed that he did not get the leftovers from the pot roast. So I already have them on our grocery list for this coming week to buy another pot roast so we can have this dinner again. It was such a huge hit. Mostly, I mean, everybody really, really loved it and said it was like the best one I've ever made. But it was like the biggest hit with me and my 7-year-old. But anyway, so I will also be posting my grocery haul this weekend. I haven't done that in a while. So I wanted to jump back on that, and that you'll see in my upcoming grocery haul, us buying another pot roast. This next meal was not planned whatsoever, and it was just kind of thrown together. I had chicken legs, so I seasoned them with that pineapple sriracha sauce, and then I let them bake for a while, and then I put on hot sauce. I made homemade fries, and then I topped them with a cheese sauce, bacon bits, and green onions. It was not at all what I was planning, but my husband came home and he was like, "Oh, this sounds so good. Heard a commercial or something." And so I'm like, "You know what? Okay, let's make that." So I wanted to make it like chicken wings, but if you have bought chicken wings recently, you know how expensive they are. So I had legs on hand. I just did chicken legs and made them spicy. And then I made homemade fries. And I like to, after I wash them, I put them in ice cold water, let them sit a little bit, and then let them completely dry. It makes them crunchier and it was the perfect side. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.